I'm Rhonda Wentworth. I'm the director of Myasthenia Gravis Foundation of Michigan, and we are here to welcome Sarah Smith to talk about the Mediterranean diet. I have a few words from Sarah about her background, so I'll share those first. Sarah is an MSU alumni. She graduated in 2007 with her Bachelor of Science degree in dietetics before completing her Master's of Science degree in 2008 in Family and Consumer Sciences at Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois. Sarah has been a registered dietitian for over 15 years with experience working in skilled nursing facilities, and currently she works full-time at Sparrow Hospital as an outpatient dietitian. She also owns her own consulting business called Food for Thought, RDN Nutritional Services, LLC. Sarah specializes in nutrition education. She enjoys her time teaching and educating those who want to learn more about food and nutrition. Food is such an integral part of everyone's life. It can cause pleasure, contentment, satisfaction, and accomplishment to one's life. Educating others how to prepare foods in a healthful and nutritious way to promote overall health and well-being is what drives Sarah to continue to do what she loves. Sarah's days are filled with teaching, cooking, and nutrition classes and counseling individuals on a one-to-one basis. Sarah's family also benefits from her love of food and nutrition. Her young girls love to help her in the kitchen and definitely keep her busy. Sarah loves fitness and participating in joyful movement. You can find Sarah at the gym, outside taking walks, riding bikes, going on hikes, playing with her children, taking care of their chickens, and gardening. Sarah also enjoys developing and modifying different recipes, spending time in her kitchen at home, and curling up with a good book and a hot cup of coffee. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sarah.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. So hopefully in the next half hour to 60 minutes, you guys learn quite a bit of stuff about the Mediterranean diet. And if you do have questions, you can put them in the chat and we will get to them as we can. I think we discussed answering them at the end, Rhonda?
Yes.
Okay.
That worked great. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let me share my screen and I'll get the PowerPoint set up here. So Mediterranean Made Easy is the title of the webinar tonight. And some things that we're going to discuss and hopefully we're going to feel confident with once the presentation is over is we're going to be able to define and explain what the Mediterranean diet is. We're going to be able to specify foods that can and should be included in this lifestyle. We'll discuss conditions or medical conditions that this eating plan can benefit. And we'll demonstrate how to incorporate these foods into a healthy eating plan. Now, as you've heard me say, an eating plan or a lifestyle. So yes, it's called the Mediterranean diet, but a lot of us think of a diet as a fad diet or some quick fix, right? But this should be more of a lifestyle or an eating pattern that you follow on a regular basis for the majority of your life. So the Mediterranean diet can easily be incorporated into any lifestyle as a way of life and a nutrient-dense eating pattern. This lifestyle emphasizes on a variety of foods, specifically focusing on things from plants. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes, or beans and lentils. Cooking and eating simple and having minimally processed foods is a goal of the Mediterranean diet as well. And there's not one specific food that we focus on when we talk about the Mediterranean lifestyle. We are talking about all foods and how most all foods can fit. So this eating pattern decreases your risk for cardiovascular disease. It also decreases your risk for stroke. It can help to decrease your overall total cholesterol, decrease your inflammation that you might have in your body, and it promotes a healthy body weight. And because it is such rich in fiber-rich foods and lean proteins, it can also stabilize your blood glucose, and it can increase your mood, because mood is directly affected by the foods that we eat. So this eating pattern is one of the most studied and appreciated eating patterns in the world. It's known as the poor man's diet because people labored to create sustenance and crops in less hospitable regions, specifically the Mediterranean area. It represents traditional eating habits of the Mediterranean region around the 1950s to 1960s, specifically in Greece and southern Italy. And actually, the life expectancy has increased from ages 64 to 70 to 82 years of age in 2019 in that region, based on this eating pattern. Dr. Ansel Keys, I'm not sure if any of you have heard of him or if you've studied him before, but he describes this as a mainly vegetarian diet and including fruit for dessert. He is the one that studied the dietary pattern with the Mediterranean diet and the prevalence of heart disease, and he was a professor at the University of Minnesota. He passed away in 2004, but he studied this from 1940 to 1972, roughly. He also has an equation, it's called the Keys equation, that calculates out your cardioprotective effect based on the Mediterranean diet and the fatty acids. So there's been a lot of research and a lot of time and effort put into this eating pattern by many people. So I'm going to show this pyramid a couple times throughout this webinar tonight. This is called the Mediterranean Diet Pyramid. And as you can see, there's physical activity, there's fruits and vegetables and whole grains, there's a lot of fish and seafood, poultry, and minimally processed foods in the pyramid. So it's a little bit different than what you would be used to seeing if you remember what our pyramid looked like with the guy running up the stairs on the side of that pyramid. And now we've replaced it in the US with the plate with the 5 different food groups. So this is slightly different, but this is the Mediterranean Diet Pyramid. So we'll dive into that as the night goes on. And I'll discuss each kind of peer here as we go through the presentation as well. So the Mediterranean diet includes a lot of many different principles, but physical activity or joyful movement, as you noticed, was the base of the pyramid. And this is very important in terms of an overall healthful lifestyle. Now, when people think of physical activity or exercise, I never like to use the word exercise because patients sometimes bring that that defense wall up and they're like, oh, exercise, I can't find 30 minutes a day to go to the gym, or going to the gym is too expensive, or I can't lift weights because I have a hurt back. Well, I don't want you to think of physical activity as something that's going to be a dreaded activity. Because if it's a dreaded activity to you, then chances are you won't participate in it for a habit formation, right? So things like walking would be helpful, or doing things together as a family. So walking through the mall, or playing outside, or having a garden, or having a dog and you guys walk the dogs together. Whatever type of joyful movement that you can find where you're moving your body above and beyond your normal activities, that's what we're talking about here with physical activity. And it's recommended to get roughly 30 minutes a day if you can, but that could be 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, 10 minutes at night. Or it could be 30 minutes in one chunk of time during the day. So it's kind of how you want to divide up your time. But something else that can promote physical activity without even really trying is to limit our screen time. Because how many of us scroll on our phones or watch TV and we have that mindless activity that's very sedentary, where we could be up marching in place, or we could be walking on the treadmill while we're responding to some text messages or something. So it's just kind of shifting how we view some of our normal activities in our life. This eating pattern is also high in monounsaturated fats and very low in saturated fats. So a quick overview about unsaturated fats versus saturated. Unsaturated fats come from plants. So you have olive oil or avocados or nuts, things like that. Those are coming from plants. They're more liquid at room temperature. Canola oil, olive oil, you probably have some of that in your cupboard. But when we think about saturated fat, now this is a completely different chain of fatty acids, and saturated fats are solid at room temperature. So you think solid starts with S, saturated starts with S. So the stick of butter that you have on your counter, or the coconut oil that you have on your counter in the nice big jar, or maybe the bacon grease that you get after cooking bacon, or sausage. You know how the grease kind of sits when it cools and turns solid? Well, those are all considered solid fats. They're going to solidify in your veins and your arteries, and then that's going to cause inflammation in your body. And when we have a lot of saturated fats in our diet, that's where a lot of us can find issues with our cholesterol levels, joint pain, high blood pressure, because of the inflammation from the saturated fat that we've consumed. Plant-based proteins and fish are two of the main protein sources that this eating pattern promotes. And also eating foods that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants, focusing more on whole grains versus refined or white grains, and then including a variety of different colors of those fruits and vegetables that we have available to us. Another principle of the Mediterranean eating pattern is conviviality, and this is defined as the social component to eating. So many of us might be eating in our car, or eating at our desk at work, or perhaps we're eating alone, or we live alone, so we find ourselves having more meals solo versus meals with groups of people. But the more often that you can have a meal in a social setting, the better outcomes that you're going to have with your food choices. So two aspects that characterize the Mediterranean diet are the what we eat. We've kind of already talked about some of what we eat, but the how we eat is what I want to talk about right now. This is the most studied concept, the family meals. How involves socializing when eating, and it promotes self-awareness so that we are more aware of when we're satisfied with eating, so we don't feel like we're overeating or anything to that nature. We also are able to pinpoint our hunger signals better. We tend to eat slower, and we chew better when we sit in a social setting. So if we're eating with more than one person, we're typically going to be talking about our day, talking about an event that happened. We're going to be sharing maybe a special event together. So we're going to take more time in the social setting aspect of eating. Conviviality establishes a sense of community and perpetuation of the Mediterranean diet pattern from generation to generation. So if a grandparent is eating with a grandchild, or if a parent is eating with their parent, or I guess you could say generations, right? 3 generations are eating together. However it's going to be, that's just going to promote a better outcome with your food choices. And did you know that 70% of the meals that we eat are ate away from home? So whether we eat them at a sporting event, or we eat them at a restaurant, or we eat them at our desk, but a huge number of meals out of that 70% are consumed in the car. So think about your busy lifestyle and when you're eating your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. So family meals can increase our intake of fruits and vegetables. It can decrease the intake of added sugars and regular pops and juices and things like that, that would then promote inflammation if we have a large amount of those. So it's good to pay attention to our added sugar intake and try to decrease that. And then the more that we eat together as a family, the better health and well-being for our whole family. So typically less issues with weight problems, less incidences of high blood pressure, decreased risks for diabetes and heart disease, because you're having a better health and well-being for the whole family as you sit there together as a family. The Mediterranean diet is also ranked #1 for the best diet overall in 2022 by the US News. But that's not all. It's also ranked #1 for the best plant-based diet, the best heart-healthy diet, the best diabetes diet, the best diet for healthy eating, and the easiest diet to follow. So you see how it's ranked #1 for many different areas of your health. Well, that's why this is more considered a lifestyle and not necessarily a quote-unquote diet that some of us think of. So as we go back to the pyramid again, you can see at the base, we have our joyful movement and our conviviality there. And then as we work our way up, we have fruits, vegetables, whole grains, olive oil. We have beans and seeds and nuts. And those are all things that come from a plant. So a good rule of thumb would then be to think of making 75% of your plate coming from plants. So if you think about the different food groups we have vegetables and fruits, we have whole grains or grains, I guess. We have proteins and dairy. If you make 75% of your plate from plants, chances are you're going to be getting enough antioxidants, enough fiber, and enough of those enough fiber, enough antioxidants, and enough vitamins and minerals that we would need then to help promote an overall healthful lifestyle. And then if you're including the olive oil or the avocados or the nuts and the seeds, then benefit, you're going to be getting a lot of those monounsaturated fats that are going to continue to help promote decreasing that inflammation in your body. Then as we work our way up, we have fish and seafood. Fish such as salmon or tuna fish or cod, herring, that's another one. Those are all recommended to have at least twice a week in a 4-ounce serving. And that's going to give us a lot of omega-3 fatty acids, which is going to be very beneficial for decreasing the inflammation in our body. Then we have poultry, eggs, cheese, and other low-fat dairy items. When I say poultry, we want to think of boneless, skinless chicken breast or boneless, skinless turkey breast, because there's minimal to no cholesterol and minimal to no saturated fat in the white portion of the poultry. Things that we want to limit is the dark meat poultry. So I know Thanksgiving's coming up, right? And most of us have turkey. So the dark meat turkey and the skin on the turkey, that's where the cholesterol and the saturated fat is going to be. And those two components can promote inflammation and cause more issues for our joints in our body. Low-fat dairy, such as 1% milk or skim milk, fat-free yogurt, low-fat cheese, low-fat cottage cheese, those should be included because we need the calcium and the vitamin D that those items provide us. But what we don't need is all of the saturated fat and cholesterol that are found in the high-fat dairy products. And then at the very top of the pyramid is meats and sweets. Meats meaning red meat, typically beef, is very high in saturated fat and cholesterol. And that's going to, again, promote inflammation. And then those added sugars from the different sweets like donuts and cookies and cakes, while they taste good, when you eat those on a regular basis, they can promote a higher body weight. They can promote issues with our joints, and the list goes on. The primary beverage should be water. And I'm not someone that promotes alcohol consumption. That would be a question you would have to have with your physician based on your medications and different health diagnoses that you may have. But it has been researched and known that a glass of red wine, dry red wine, roughly 6-ounce serving, has some cardiovascular protective benefits, and it also helps to decrease inflammation in our body due to the antioxidants that it consumes, because it's so concentrated with that specific antioxidant. So after all of that being said, there's a lot of things that some of us are probably thinking, wow, how am I going to incorporate all of this into my diet? Or how am I going to incorporate this all into my lifestyle? That's a lot of things that she's recommending. Well, I don't want you to do all of these things at once. That would be a big ask for someone to expect you to change that much at one time. So simple, profound changes can make big, big impacts in a positive way. So maybe you want to start with just doing physical activity daily. Maybe right now you only do it a couple times a week. Maybe you're going to start walking 5 or 6 times a week with your neighbor. Well, that would be one thing that could make a big impact on your overall health. Or trying a meatless meal once a week. I know there's a lot of theme meals out there, right? So meatless Monday. So maybe every Monday you have no animal proteins. You might use peanut butter, you might use beans, you might use lentils, you might use quinoa. There's a lot of plant-based proteins that you could incorporate one meal or one day per week. That's just one change that you could start working on. Trying fruit as a dessert more often. A lot of us like sweet treats after we have our meal. Well, fruit is a naturally sweet food item, and you could use cinnamon apples, you could use grapes, you could put a dollop of whipped cream or something like that on a fruit that you enjoy, however you wanted to do it, but trying fruit as a dessert can also be helpful. Filling half of your plate with vegetables. That's a surefire way to help you decrease portions of other food groups as well, because vegetables, as we know, are full of fiber, and they're going to fill us up faster than foods like meats or pastas or rice or things like that. When we utilize unsaturated fatty acids, we want to try to utilize those on a daily basis. So switching from maybe a vegetable oil to olive oil, or switching from a butter that's full of saturated fat to maybe a tub margarine, maybe incorporating seeds every day on that salad that you eat, or maybe having avocados a few times a week with your breakfast or on a slice of whole grain toast. Those are ways to get those unsaturated fatty acids into your routine. And then incorporating seafood twice a week. The main purpose or one reason for incorporating the seafood is for those omega-3 fatty acids that they contain. Since omega-3 fatty acids are essential fats, that means our body cannot make these. We have to get them from food. So whether we're getting them from 4-ounce serving of salmon or a 4-ounce serving of tuna, or maybe we're going to have flaxseed or walnuts, whatever the food is that contains those omega-3 fatty acids, we want to try to make it a point to have 2 4-ounce servings a week. The omega-3 fatty acids are a starting point for making hormones that regulate blood clotting. Omega-3 fatty acids also help with contraction and relaxation of our arteries and our veins. And when all of that occurs, then we're having more outcomes of decreased inflammation. And by decreasing that inflammation, then we have better blood flow through our body because our blood vessels and our arterial walls are functioning at a better rate because there's a lot less inflammation there. And then maybe you're going to try to switch to whole grains. So some whole grains that a lot of people find easier to make the switch from would be from white rice to brown rice. Or maybe you like to make maybe a soup or a salad or something similar. Well, adding barley or farro to some of those soups or salads that you make can be helpful by adding whole grains into your routine. And those are also traditional Mediterranean grains as well. But you can still do 100% whole wheat bread or whole grain pasta or quinoa. Those are all still considered whole grains. Oatmeal is another good one, like rolled oats or quick oats or steel cut oats. Those would all be helpful too. So as you all know, with MG, it's an autoimmune neuromuscular disease. And when there's a lot of inflammation in there, then it causes a lot of joint pain. You guys could probably tell me more about it than you guys are probably experts in it. And when the chemical receptors are blocked from reaching the cell, causing weakness, then that is a sign that there's a lot of inflammation going on. There's a lot of degrees of pain and degrees of discomfort, but knowing that the inflammation that's caused by this disease, you could be incorporating more of those unsaturated fatty acids to help decrease some of that inflammation so that you have better blood flow, so that your joints and your muscles are working at a better rate for you. With diabetes, there's been plenty of studies. And when I was putting together this PowerPoint, I couldn't believe the hundreds of studies I was finding with diabetes, weight, cardiovascular disease, I mean, you name it, there's studies out there that shows the benefits of following a Mediterranean lifestyle and the improvements that people see in their overall health. So when you have diabetes and you're following this type of lifestyle, in one study, 20 obese men and 26 obese women did a 6-month randomized controlled trial where they incorporated more unsaturated fatty acids and less saturated fats. They had better metabolism, and they found that their overall fasting blood glucose levels decreased by 3%, which over 6 months, that's a pretty significant improvement when you can decrease your overall blood sugars by that much. Also, if you're taking in a lot of fresh fruits or frozen fruits, frozen vegetables, fresh vegetables, whole grains, a lot of foods that are high in fiber and different antioxidants such as polyphenols, then you're going to improve your insulin sensitivity as well. You can also find that following this type of lifestyle pattern, you're going to decrease your risk for cardiovascular disease. You'll end up lowering your total cholesterol and lowering your bad cholesterol. When you have several inflammatory markers, it actually causes you to be at higher risk for some sort of cardiovascular event. But when you're following the Mediterranean lifestyle, your atherosclerotic process decreases as far as the rate of cardiovascular disease forming. Hypertension also decreases, or if you are diagnosed with hypertension and then you change your eating patterns, you decrease the amount of sodium that you're consuming, and you increase the amount of vegetables and plant-based proteins that you're consuming, chances are your blood pressure is going to significantly lower because you're decreasing that inflammation. You have so much inflammation in your arterial wall with high blood pressure, but as soon as you start decreasing your sodium and changing your dietary patterns, you're going to find that your blood pressure is going to increase or decrease as well. And some patients end up coming off medications. They're able to come off their blood pressure medication. They're able to come off their diabetes medication because their lab values improve so much just from their change in eating habits. So again, another marker that physicians like to look at is the C-reactive protein, or the CRP levels in your blood. And that's an inflammation marker for diseases like rheumatoid arthritis or heart disease or diabetes. When you have a diet that's high in fiber, it feeds the good bacteria in your gut. So that's a prebiotic, which then feeds the good bacteria in your gut, which is helpful because it promotes lower inflammation body-wide. It decreases your risk for a stroke. So that's a good thing, right? You have another decreased risk for something else occurring. Just making sure that you're decreasing your saturated fat intake decreases your incidence of cardiovascular and cerebral vascular incidences, such as a heart attack or a stroke. Another positive benefit of this Mediterranean diet is it protects your cells from oxidative damage. Oxidative damage might be a new term or concept to some of you. Oxidative damage is defined as the physiological stress on the body that is caused by the cumulative damage done by free radicals inadequately neutralized by antioxidants. So let me just explain this a little bit better for you. So we have cells in our body that are damaged from different medical conditions, heart disease, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, MG, all these different diseases that we have damaged cells now from those medical conditions, but we still have healthy cells. Now we have these enemy cells that are floating around in our body that are damaging our healthy cells and making our already damaged cells worsened. We need antioxidants to basically stop those enemy cells from damaging our healthy cells any further. So again, another benefit of having 75% of your plate from plants is all the antioxidants that you're going to be consuming, which is going to help to keep your healthy cells healthy and your enemy cells at bay so that they don't keep destroying your healthy cells. And if you have struggled with obesity or know someone that struggles with obesity, being on the Mediterranean diet and following this lifestyle is helpful. It decreases your anthropometric data, meaning your BMI typically lowers, your overall body weight typically lowers, and it's going to just overall improve your risk factors for developing some metabolic syndromes that some of us are at risk for. Why does this work? Well, because we find that we're more satisfied after eating foods from the Mediterranean food guide pyramid. So more fiber, that's going to keep us fuller longer. Those unsaturated fats, that's going to keep us fuller longer as well. And those lean proteins, they're satisfying and they're a lot less, there's no saturated fat there, so they're going to be a lot more nutritious for us. And the best part about it is if we're following the Mediterranean diet, we're going to have less restaurant meal consumption and more homemade meals. So we might even find that there's some financial benefits to the Mediterranean lifestyle as well. So you can spend as much or as little as you want to if you are following this lifestyle and this eating pattern. Buying produce in season is typically cheaper than buying it out of season. Stocking up on frozen fruits and vegetables is a good way to have a lot of those antioxidants and vitamins and minerals that we need at a smaller cost. So think of a head of broccoli in the grocery store, right? If it's fresh, it might cost you $3 to $4. But if you get a bag of frozen broccoli florets, that could be $1.25. And that has a longer shelf life, right? Because it can stay in the freezer for up to 6 months without any issues. And there's nothing wrong with frozen fruits or vegetables as long as they're not frozen in some sort of sauce or some sort of added sugar. When you're replacing restaurant meals with home cooked meals, you're typically going to be saving more money. I kind of did a little breakdown here for you. A typical chicken dish at a restaurant that comes with an order of steamed vegetables and a potato typically costs you about $16 in a restaurant. Well, if you break that down per ingredient at home, it comes out to about $3.58 per serving to serve 4 people. So you could make that meal at home, serve 4 people, and still save money than what you would have at a restaurant. If we're working on replacing animal proteins with more plant-based proteins, again, we're going to save money because 1 pound of lean ground turkey or 1 pound of ground chicken or something similar could cost about $9 a pound, right? But then if you think about, oh, but let's see how much plant-based proteins are. Where could we incorporate these? Well, 1 can of low sodium black beans is around $1. And that's a great savings there, right? So you could use half a pound of your ground turkey or your ground meat in a recipe and add in a can of black beans, and you still have a lot of protein and a lot of meat mixture, just that 1 pound is going to go farther because you're incorporating the plant-based proteins there. Another cost savings thing with this eating pattern is that it has a lot of free resources on the internet. So you can find many different resources out there. My favorite one is Oldways, OLDWAYS. They have a lot of recipes and they have some different information on their website. And I like that one the best, but I know there's plenty more out there that are free. So just to recap, here's a nice chart here for you. Just a recap of the beneficial effects of the Mediterranean diet on many different conditions that we might experience here in America. So improving our diabetes risk factors, improving our cardiovascular risk factors by decreasing blood pressure, decreasing overall cholesterol, decreasing our risks of stroke, So as you can see here, there's many benefits to consider incorporating this into your lifestyle. So now I'm going to stop sharing this screen because I have a 10-minute cooking demo that I wanted to share with you.
Thank you for joining me in the kitchen today. Our topic today is how to make the Mediterranean diet easily adaptable into your current lifestyle. We have 3 recipes we'll be preparing today: the rainbow chopped salad, the zucchini ribbon salad, and the cilantro lime salmon. So let's get started. So in the cilantro lime salmon, we have cilantro, olive oil, a dash of pepper, fresh garlic, sliced limes, sliced tomatoes, and fresh salmon. This will take about 10 to 12 minutes to prepare, and the salmon should bake in the oven at 425 degrees for roughly 12 to 15 minutes. We're going to add some fresh squeezed lime juice to this bunch of cilantro. As we know, cilantro is a fresh herb. It adds a lot of flavor to different dishes without adding any extra added salt. Cilantro is also full of antioxidants and some vitamins. And those antioxidants help to neutralize those free radicals or those enemies that we have floating around in our body to help make our cells healthier and to prevent any further damage from occurring. Then we're going to add some chopped garlic and our olive oil. Olive oil is full of unsaturated fatty acids that help to decrease some of that inflammation in our arterial walls. Olive oil also helps to improve our overall cholesterol. It improves our good cholesterol also. All right, so now once the cilantro sauce is completed, you can either use a food processor or you can just chop the cilantro finely like I did on a cutting board and mix everything together in a mixing bowl. We're going to sprinkle some black pepper on our salmon fillets. Salmon is a lean protein. Fish is considered a very lean protein, and it's full of omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3 fatty acids are considered an essential fatty acid because our body does not make those. And we need to get those from different food sources. So flaxseed, walnuts, salmon, tuna fish are prominent sources of omega-3 fatty acids. Once you have the salmon fillets seasoned with some black pepper, then you're just going to layer the cilantro sauce on top of them. This is very, very tasty. Cilantro, garlic, black pepper, and lime juice. So no added salt. You can store these in the refrigerator once baked for about 3 days. Just make sure that you're reheating them in a microwave-safe container up to 165 degrees to prevent any foodborne illness from occurring. Once the cilantro lime sauce is on the salmon, we're going to layer it with a tomato and fresh lime slices. It's recommended to have 2 servings of fish per week, and each serving should be roughly 4 ounces once cooked. So once this is prepared, we're going to put this in the oven at 425 degrees for roughly 25 to 30 minutes. This salmon is about 2 pounds before you prepare it. So once it's cooked, you have about 6 servings here. So this could feed a family, or you could make this ahead of time, and you could utilize this for dinner or lunches through the week. It's good saved in the fridge for about 3 days and reheated in a microwave for up to 165 degrees. You could pair it with some brown rice, or you could pair it with one of the salads that we've made today as well. But it is considered a lean protein and full of omega-3 fatty acids. Within the Mediterranean diet, it's very important to make sure that you're getting a wide variety of colors of different fruits and vegetables. Zucchini is green, and it's a dark green. So it's going to give us some iron and a lot of fiber, some antioxidants, and some vitamin K. If you've never used a spiralizer before, it's a fun kitchen tool to kind of have on hand for new and fun recipes or presenting your vegetables in different ways. After spiralizing the zucchini, you might want to consider using some kitchen shears and cutting the zucchini into smaller pieces, because the spiralizer will create long pieces of your vegetable. After your zucchini is spiralized and cut into smaller pieces, we are going to add 1 can of no salt added chickpeas. These are considered a plant-based protein, full of fiber as well. And then a 1/3 cup of cooked barley. Barley is considered a whole grain, full of fiber and iron, and it's gonna keep you fuller longer. We'll go ahead and mix these ingredients together. Then we will get started on creating our homemade dressing. So within this dressing, there's some olive oil, lemon juice, and white wine vinegar, and a little bit of pepper to taste. We'll whisk this together in a bowl. As you can see, there's no added salt. We did add a vinegar. A vinegar is considered an acid, which helps to bring the flavors together, which does basically the same type of thing as salt would do in terms of marrying those flavors. Fresh mint is the herb in this recipe. It's gonna add a bunch of flavor without adding any extra salt or added salt. Fresh mint helps in aiding with digestion. It's also full of antioxidants. And some say that it helps to keep your breath fresh and adds a strong taste to different types of recipes. A lot of people like to use fresh mint in different beverages and desserts as well. So to top off this recipe here, we're going to add just a little bit of feta cheese just for flavor, as feta is a strong cheese, so a little bit can go a long way. And there we have our completed zucchini ribbon salad. Our next recipe is called the rainbow chop salad. This recipe, you are definitely eating through the rainbow. With the Mediterranean diet, it's very important to make sure you're getting a wide variety of different colors from your produce options each day. And each color contains a different type and different amounts of antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. We know that antioxidants help defend your healthy cells against those free radicals that can cause damage. They cause damage to our arterial tissue, they cause damage to healthy cells, and we want to neutralize that damage by eating a wide variety of colors. So we have kale as the base of the salad. We have chopped grape tomatoes. We have purple cabbage. And we have a diced yellow pepper here. And chopped carrots. Just going to toss these ingredients together so that the colors intermingle. And our dressing consists of olive oil, white wine vinegar, and ground black pepper. You could either mix the ingredients together in a separate bowl if you would like, or you can mix it together in the same bowl as your salad. But regardless, you want to make sure that you massage the kale with some of the dressing to help soften the kale, so it doesn't have such a bitter taste. We're going to add some scallions and some fresh basil. Again, no added salt, no added sugar in this recipe, but it's full of flavor from the fresh basil and the scallions and the homemade dressing. And our final ingredient is fresh mozzarella pearls that we're just going to put on the top of the salad. And there you have it. These are the 3 completed recipes for today: the rainbow chopped salad, the zucchini ribbon salad, and the cilantro lime salmon. Thank you for joining me in the kitchen today. I hope you are able to learn some new tips and tricks and how to incorporate more of these Mediterranean food items into your diet. Happy eating!
So I am willing to take questions now if you guys have questions. I hope that I was able to provide you with some more tools to help with your food choices, though.
We have a couple in the chat. So they're not really questions, but comments. Actually, I wrote, love this information about the diet, simple changes you can make, and even ideas for saving money. Thanks for letting us share your PowerPoint and video when it's edited to our MG community. And then for others, you can feel free to leave your questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself too and talk to us that way. And then Esther said, this is most interesting and it looks pretty simple. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. I hope it's simple, because if it's difficult, many of us aren't going to do it. So the simpler, the better.
I can see why your kids enjoy having you in the kitchen.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else have some questions or comments they'd like to make? Or have any of you tried the Mediterranean diet before? Or some of the things that they incorporate?
Well, I will tell you those 3 recipes that I set, or I guess prepared for you. All 3 are very flavorful, and you could tell that there was no added sugar, no added salt, no saturated fat or anything in there, but just mixing many different foods together can create a flavorful dish. A lot of times you don't think of pairing different foods together, but when you put more than 1 or 2 foods together, you can have a lot of flavor for minimal, calories, minimal saturated fat, which is always a benefit.
Sure. Esther said, I have challenges with selecting olive oil, and asked what should she look for?
So, great question. Olive oil has a very low smoke point. So olive oil is typically better for marinating meats, or using as a salad dressing or something similar. If you are going to use it to maybe saute something or roast something in the oven, you want to put it on a lower heat, like 295 to 300 degrees is about the max heat that olive oil can withstand, because olive oil will then burn when it gets hotter than that. And then your food is going to taste funny, I guess you would call it, because the olive oil has burnt a little bit. So if you wanted an oil for higher heat, say you're baking something in the oven for 425 degrees, but you need a little bit of oil for that, then that's where you would want to pull in the canola oil or something similar to that, or avocado oil. Yeah. Did that answer your question, Esther? Okay.
There's different varieties of olive oil, and some are better tasting than others.
Yep, and it's the way it's pressed.
Okay.
Yep.
So
And you can,
to get a really good tasting olive oil, what do I look for?
well, typically on the label, it's going to say that it's good for salad dressings, or it's going to say that it's good for marinades, or it's going to give you a couple different ways to use it in terms of what it's best used for, so that you get the best bang for your buck. And really, with olive oil, the more expensive the olive oil, the better it's going to taste, because the higher quality olives and stuff that they've used to actually make the olive oil.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Janet says, thank you for your very informative informational presentation. This gives me an incentive to try this to improve my health. It seems easy enough to do.
Perfect. Thank you, Janet.
And did I read Eric's? I plan to start a plant-based diet. Mhm.
There's many benefits to that, Eric. So good
Mhm.
luck with that endeavor.
I like the fact that you said you can just start with small changes, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm yourself. So
Mhm.
we all know how that can go when we overwhelm ourselves. We end up just feeling like we're not going to do anything at some point, right?
Mhm. We have some upcoming events. We have one more support meeting in December on the 16th. That's virtual. And then we have an in-person meeting in Warren for the Macomb County region that's coming up. And so don't forget about those. We'd love to see you at any of those. We'll be doing virtual meetings throughout the year, every month. I have them planned for 2025 now. And they're starting to get onto our website, so watch that. We have a newsletter coming up pretty soon, so you can check out events and all kinds of things from our conference and so on. So great information to come. So check out mg-mi.org for that kind of information. And if you have more questions for us, then you can always reach out either through the website or directly. So.
Well, thank you guys for having me tonight. I really appreciated this opportunity. So,
Thank
and
you.
Rhonda has my contact information if anyone has specific questions or anything as the night goes on, or tomorrow, if you think of something, don't hesitate to ask Rhonda to provide you with my email address, and I'm more than happy to share that with you. So
Thanks
Thank you.
also
We
for your
appreciate it.
Thanks also for your demonstration. That was
Yes.
incentive
Oh,
to
good.
Mhm.
with
Good.
the recipes. You gave me a resource where to get them. I'm gonna eat hungry and good.
Good, Esther.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, good
thanks
luck,
so much.
everybody's change of eating habits. So I appreciate the opportunity again.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
You too.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.